We manage an Azure subscription, which contains an Azure storage account in the resource group. Users and applications access the blob and file services through various shared access signatures and stored access policies. We discover unauthorized access to both services and need to revoke all access to the storage account. Would creating a new stored access policy meet this requirement? Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. The suggested solution of creating a new stored access policy for storage account does not fully revoke all access because each resource group has only one SAS unless explicitly configured otherwise. Therefore, it only allows access through that single SAS. We have an Azure subscription that contains virtual machines. We enable just-in-time JITVM access for all the virtual machines. We need to connect to a virtual machine using remote desktop. What should we do first? From Azure Directory Privileged Identity Management, activate the Security Administrator user role. B. From Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management, activate the owner role for the virtual machine. C. From the Azure portal, select the virtual machine, select Connect, and then select Request Access. D. From the Azure portal, select the virtual machine and add the Network Watcher Agent virtual machine extension. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. When just-in-time virtual machine access is enabled, inbound traffic to virtual machines is restricted. To connect to a virtual machine using Remote Desktop Protocol or SSH, you must request temporary access. Our network contains an Active Directory forest. We also have an Azure Active Directory tenant with the same name. We plan to set up synchronization using the Express Settings installation option in Azure Active Directory Connect. We need to determine which roles and groups are required to perform this configuration while adhering to the principle of least privilege. Which two roles and groups should we identify? The Domain Admins group in Active Directory. B. The Security Administrator role in Azure Active Directory. C. The Global Administrator role in Azure Active Directory. D. The User Administrator role in Azure Active Directory. E. The Enterprise Admins group in Active Directory. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. When configuring Azure Active Directory Connect with the Express Settings option, the process requires elevated privileges in both on-premises Active Directory and Azure Active Directory to ensure proper synchronization and configuration. We have an Azure virtual machine that runs Ubuntu 16.04. We plan to deploy and configure an Azure Key Vault and enable Azure Disk Encryption for the virtual machine. Which of the following is T or UE with regards to Azure Disk Encryption for a Linux virtual machine? It is NOT supported for basic tier virtual machines. B. It is NOT supported for standard tier virtual machines. C. Drive encryption for Linux virtual machine scale sets is supported. D. Custom image encryption is supported. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. Both basic and standard VMs support Azure Disk Encryption, so options C and D are true. But Azure Disk Encryption does not automatically encrypt drives on a virtual machine but can be set up via Key Vault. We manage a network with an on-premises Active Directory domain and an Azure subscription called Subone, which is linked to an Azure Active Directory tenant. We sync all on-premises identities to Azure Active Directory and need to prevent the synchronization of users whose given attribute starts with TEST while ensuring minimal administrative effort. Which solution should we use? A synchronization rules editor. The Web Service Configuration Tool. C. The Azure Active Directory Connect Wizard. D. Active Directory Users and Computers. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. To prevent users with a given attribute starting with TEST from being synced into Azure AD while maintaining automatic sync of other users, the most efficient approach is to use Synchronization Rules Editor. This tool allows creating specific rules that exclude the targeted users, ensuring minimal administrative effort. The task involves applying conditional access policies within Azure Active Directory. The process includes assessing both risk events and risk levels. Additionally, it seeks to determine which specific risk level should be configured for sign-ins originating from IP addresses with dubious activity. A none, B low, C medium, D high. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. The correct risk level for signs in originating from IPs with dubious activity on Azure Active Directory is medium. We have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Key Vault. In it, we create a secret. An application developer registers an application in Azure Active Directory. We need to ensure that the application can access and use secret. What should we do? Well, in Azure AD, create a role. B, in Azure Key Vault. C, in Azure Key Vault, create an access policy. D, in Azure AD, enable Azure AD Application Proxy. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. To ensure your Azure Active Directory application can use the secret created in Azure Key Vault, you need to configure the application proxy and create an access policy. We use Azure Security Center for centralized policy management across 3 Azure subscriptions. Several policy definitions are utilized to manage the security of these subscriptions. To deploy these definitions as a group to all 3 subscriptions, a group-based approach is required. Solution: we create a policy definition and assignments scoped to resource groups. Does this meet the goal? Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. It is incorrect. We have been tasked with configuring an access review, which we plan to assign to a new collection of reviews. We also have to make sure that the reviews can be reviewed by resource owners. We start by creating an access review program and an access review control. We now need to configure the reviewers. Which of the following should we set reviewers to? A, selected users. B, members self. C, group owners. D, anyone. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. If the resource is a group, they need ask the group owners to review. We utilize Azure Resource Manager templates to deploy Azure virtual machines. We need to disable unused Windows features automatically as instances of the virtual machines are provisioned. What should we use? A device compliance policies in Microsoft Intune. B. Azure Automation State Configuration. C. Application Security Groups. D. Azure Advisor. Okay, now pause the video here, have a bit of think, and then continue when you are ready. You can use Azure Automation State Configuration to manage Azure virtual machines. Not forget to like and subscribe.